here we are, my man, Roshaun Davis.
Yes.
Thanks for being here, man.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, it's, I always like to get started with like who you are to me. And, I met you a number of years ago through capital floats and our connections in the business scene and just your ultra connectedness in Sacramento. And who you are to me is you're the master like connector. Like you have like truly anyone in Sacramento knows who you are from every single person. And you have which I want to get into today, but you have this ability, you make life seem so simple. And it's not because you're taking the easy road, but because like I know you take on challenges and you do big things and massive impact. But whenever I see you, it's always just an acceptance of what is.
Yes.
And you have this fluidity to life, and it is as good, if it's better than anyone I've really ever met. And you have just, when you walk into a room, man, you make people feel good. And it's contagious, and people I know want to be around you. And you're just, I love you, man.
I love you too, man. That was good. It's interesting you say that because, as you walk through life, there might be times where it's like, oh, that's how the perception of yourself is. You don't really know it sometimes, and it's like, so it's good to hear like an outside perspective of like what is and how I show up.
It's what you put
in
out
spaces, because like my core vibration is that. And sometimes I might go off of that and I'll get into the feeling of like, dang, I'm not on today, man. Like everything sucks. But then knowing that that's my core vibration, it's easy for me to come back to that. So to know that when I show up in places, that's the vibe. It's like, oh, cool. Like that's the vibe that I resonate with, but I also like to put out, so.
And you do it from like you and I haven't caught up much over the last year and a half.
Yeah.
And obviously life's been pretty wild over the last year and a half.
Just
this
a
is,
little.
what are we in? February of 2022. So lots taking place in the world the context is you're an events guy. You bring people together, you build community, like people in the flesh, like people around each other. What has life been like since March of 2020 for you?
Oh, wow. No, that's a big one. It's been interesting. It's been a flow. It's been an opportunity to practice the flow of life in real time. Truly. Like that's what I say. It's like, I think I was just having this conversation last night with Maritza of like, some people will get into this whirlwind with life and get thrown all around, right? But then there's some people who are just steady through it and can move through the whirlwind and just accept what comes and just move with it. And I feel like I'm the latter. Right?
Totally.
Right?
You just glad you have that perception of yourself, because it could be just, the world completely change, and you're just like, this is what I'm doing now.
This is what we're doing now. So in having that outlook, right, it's not being caught up in the whirlwind of life. So when the pandemic hit, I felt it in my core on a global level. It's like, oh no, we're going through a whirlwind, right? And it just brings me to this idea or this dream that I had. So I'll never forget this dream I had because I don't remember my dreams a lot, right? But this dream I had, I was in this small space and the windows closed, all the doors closed, and everybody started to panic because they couldn't breathe, right? I didn't panic. I sat down against the wall and I went into meditation pose and I meditated, right? And then I woke up, right? And so it was just like, to me, like that always sticks with me because when I saw everybody panic, I did what I know how to do, which got me out of this. Could have been a horrid dream, like me suffocating, like whatever. And so that's how I approach life too. It's like, just be in it, be focused, and just be still. And so when the pandemic hit, that was when that went to play. It was like, all right, you gotta just like freeze, right? And just like meditate. And so it was a lot of that at first, because you're right, in my world, event industry, connecting people, one perception of that could have been like the world's going to shit. The other perception is like, why is this happening for me? It's about like this being stillness, right? While everything's falling away in this sense, but then understanding like things are happening for you, you know? And so that's truly how I started in this pandemic, was just like, okay, like really, like don't freak out, just be still. Don't freak out, just be still. Remember sitting in my backyard, don't freak out, just be still. All right, why is this happening for me? What do I need to do in these moments? And it's like, I need to find the joy, right? And that's kind of like that glass is always half full mentality, is just like, no, there's some good here. I need to find it. And some days it was like me just cleaning up some shit in my house that I had put on a back burner that I was like, I'll get to. And it was like, oh, you know what? Now that I don't have anything to do, I can go fix that handle on my refrigerator. And that's going to be that one thing today that I do that is going to make it so I'm not looking at the world as falling apart, you know?
That's some wise shit to when that moment hits. And I know for shut down Capital Floats, I was freaking out. But that was just like a short window. Yours was kind of a,
still.
Who knows what's still.
Still.
How life happening for me. Has that been an outlook your whole life, or is that something you've developed?
I think I've developed that over, I want to say, I mean, with the pandemic, the years are now shot. I don't even know what year it is anymore. But I'd say for a long time. I'd say for at least, I mean, let's just go back. I've been an entrepreneur for 14 years now, right? And so even my last job, when they came to me and was like, you know, we're making budget cuts and we have to let you go, it was like, actually, this is happening for me.
Interesting.
And I'll never forget, like in that moment, you know, my boss comes to me and she's like, so sorry, I have to let you go. And I'm like, you know what? It's okay. So here's the Sacramento Bee article. And you see on the cover, this event that they're talking about. On the side, I've been creating my own event agency. And this is the event that we're doing. Like, don't cry for me. Be happy, because now I have more time to do that thing that I love. And so even in that moment, this is 2008.
Yeah.
It was already like, nah, don't feel bad for me. Like,
is that what got you in? Is that what the launch of Unseen? Like the kind of the kick in the ass? Yeah. It was like, all right, we're all in on this.
Well, I'm all in. I'm all in at this point. Like I had been doing it as like a side hustle for probably maybe like a year or so. And it was like, you know, the idea was like, if I can free up my time and not have this state job, then maybe I'll have more time to do what I love. And so that was like the transition of like, all right, let me take on a couple clients to see if I can get up to that point of what I was making as a student assistant at the state, which wasn't much. And so I was like, I can actually probably do that. And so then I was like double dipping. And then when that came through, they're like, oh, sorry. It was like, actually, no, you just allowed me you gave me back 20 hours of my life in which I was acting like I was working anyway, because the pace at which I worked was a lot faster than what the tenured people, you know, wanted. Mm-hmm. Like they'd be like, yo, Ro, slow down.
Isn't that wild, the difference between like a state position and a true like private sector?
Yeah.
It's like you're speeding up in the private sector. How do I time's valuable. Mm-hmm. Where the other one's like time's just kind of passing.
Time's passing, you know, and it's like, and I'm sure not all the state agencies are like that.
Totally.
But where I was just like, it's okay to go slow. Like, we're getting paid. And it was just like, but I'm bored. Like, there's more to life than this. And, you know, I had this homeboy who's probably like 5 years older than me. And we used to always joke, like, every morning he'd be like, escape. Get out.
He was the voice?
Yeah. He was like, get out of here. Do not be me. I'm 5 years ahead of you and I'm not turning around. So go. Yeah.
Do you think if you would have stuck there another X number of years, you would have stayed there? Or do you think you always knew you were going to be getting out at some point?
Nah, I've always known I was just an entrepreneur. I've always known I'm non-traditional.
Yeah.
I just didn't have the language for neither of those.
Got it.
Since I was a kid, but now having the language of I've just done things non-traditional my whole entire life. I've always questioned tradition, truly. Why do we do that thing? Why do we do this holiday? Since a kid, inquisitive, guys, you understand, do you even know where this comes from?
Yeah. I remember when we used to do those nights at Capitol Floats, and we'd come and Jenga block and put questions in, and that was my first time getting to know you, bringing community together. It was these nights that Ro would just bring people in from the community.
Anywhere, yeah.
No one really knew each other. And we put questions on a Jenga block, and we would ask and open up conversation. But I remember your big thing is always asking why.
Yeah.
You would pry into the why on why do we do it? Why? And it wasn't from a way of just for the sake of asking why. It was no, curiosity.
Yeah, curiosity, right? And that wonder of just yo. And what you find more and more is the status quo or the social norm is just to go along with what's happening. The more down that rabbit hole you get, you're just whoa.
What are some social norms that you feel like you've disrupted?
In my personal life, or that I'm trying to disrupt? I think social norm, just of being an entrepreneur, that goes against truly a social norm for most people. Totally. Especially when you're going through public education, you're literally taught to learn how to work for others. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That's truly what it is. It's just this cycle that then you get a good education in the broadest sense. You get a good education and then you go get a good job. Right.
So then for you, entrepreneurship, was that a natural thing for you? Or do you think that was something you developed over time into stepping into it? Because you went the state route, and that was maybe life circumstances led you there. I don't know. But that's a big jump. State to I'm on my own doing
I'm on my own, baby.
Doing your thing.
State, but it's not, if you understand the culture of Sacramento, you understand the culture of stability in Sacramento. If you understand the culture of Sacramento, stability in Sacramento, and then culture in Sacramento, especially when we talk about Black culture, a state job is you made it. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Here in this city.
Yep. There's some status to it. There's stability. There's income. There's and you're a part of the state. You're part of policy.
You're part of this bigger entity. And so, especially in the Black culture, if your parents had a state job, you were more well off than others. Or if your parents had a county job, you're more well off than others, because the public education around that time is sending people to working, right? And then it's working not even in the state, it's just working in these other areas. So if you can make it out and make it to the state, then you get your retirement, you get health care, you get all these things. It's very comfortable. So from a young age, my mom, she started with the state when she was 19. She just retired, literally just retired in February before the pandemic hit. So that was her life. So then that's all I saw growing up, which then it was yo, go get a state job. And then my aunt, my uncles, all of them had state jobs. And so it was oh, okay, cool.
Was there any fear for you when you went off on your own in 2008? From your family,
Yeah. My mom she always says, she's we've had that conversation a lot. And she's I was scared for you. That this thing that I knew as stability, you were saying, this isn't for me. And she's like, we always joke and say like, I'm a jumper, you know, like I jump. I'm like, hey, I don't like it here. I'm going to leave, Mom. And she's like, what? See you later. You know, just jump off the edge. And so she's like, yeah, I was really scared for you, but I wanted to see you fly. So I had to just like clutch my pearls and say like, oh, okay, you know, and hope for the best, you know. And she always says like that was then the tipping point for my siblings underneath me to like go in a more non-traditional space too. Because
you opened that door for them, set that example. When you jumped, like where was Unseen Heroes at the time? Like actually give the snapshot of like, was it Unseen Heroes? Was it just an event? What were you doing?
So it was just this idea at that point. So Unseen, so starting before that, hip hop group, was in a hip hop group called Righteous Movement. Did that from like 2002 to about 2010 to 2011, right? And so starting that was just something like I love music, love words, love writing, like all of those things. And so that was my niche, and that was like my way out for a long time, was just like writing rhymes, and then found a group. And so we were killing it, and we started to get bigger and bigger and bigger, right? And started going on like bigger tours and things like that. And so Unseen came, and this is probably like 2007, right? So from 2002 to 2007, we're grinding, like literally shows up and down California. We'd be in Sonoma one day, San Francisco the next day. Like, I'll never forget, we went from San Francisco to San Diego State for a day show, to San Diego in the Gaslamp Quarters for a night show. Did not sleep because we had to be at UOP to do a show and then have one more show. Oh no, we started in Sacramento in a day show. So we had like 6 shows in like less than 48 hours. But that was the grind that we were on, you know? And so it was like, okay, but every show I would go and I would say like, who is that guy? And they'd be like, oh, that's that group's manager. And it'd be like, they're not as good as us, but they're headlining. Let me see. And then it'd be like, yo, who's that girl that's with them? Oh, that's their PR agent. And I was like, damn, that's why I always see them in like these newspapers. Again, they're not better than us. They just have a lot more publicity and they have more structure. And so that's how Unseen started. It was just like, that doesn't exist in Sacramento, right? Like,
so you got into it more from like a management of music.
Yeah,
it was more of a music logistics, tour planning.
Truly not wanting to fail, right? Like that was, and more so in this last year, I've learned in therapy. Finally, being in therapy is like that was a response to my trauma. Right? Like my trauma is always, or my response to trauma is to fight, right? And like truly like come up with solutions, because to me in that time frame is like, I'm not going to fail. There's no way. I'm not going to fail. So whatever I have to do in order to not fail, I will do. So then it was like, okay, you have a manager, you have a PR person that doesn't exist in Sacramento. I'm going to make up a name. Sean Williams. And sat down. We had these meetings every Tuesday with like the group, and I was like, yo, we have a manager now, guys. And they're like, what? Like what? And I'm like, Sean Williams. Anybody who asks you anything about our group, anything, you send them to that email. And they're like, yo, when do we meet him? I'm like, bro, it's me, man. Like,
but it can't be me because we need to look professional.
Exactly, because we need to look professional.
Yeah.
So everybody on here, I'll never forget, like one of my homeboys, he actually still tours with, I think, what's her name? Not Kay Flay, but they were in the same band together. Damn, I'm forgetting her name, but she's like a dope like artist, and she still tours like to this day. And he's the drummer. I'll never forget, we were at UAP one time and like had a live band and us and the woman who like was running everything, paying us. She's like, so when do I meet this manager of yours? And I'll never forget Derek. He looked And he was in on it too. And he just starts busting up laughing. And he's like, dude, I can't believe this shit worked. And I'm like, I can't either. Like, I don't even understand. But it was just one of those things. It's my response to like trauma, you know, and I equate it to like this resiliency that people talk about, which I kind of is like a loaded thing for me, right? Because it's like to be resilient in that way, it's like you have to go through hella shit.
Totally.
Right? And so it's like on one side, it's like, oh my God, you're resilient. It's like, yeah, I'm resilient, but after every blow, it's like getting back up, getting back up. Yep. But how many times, the only way you can get to resiliency is by getting knocked down 9 times and getting up the 10th time, you know?
Where does that come from to be able to, because yes, resiliency is built through tribulation, trial and tribulation. Where does that come from for some that are able to get up early and some that just fall down from the first? It's
right.
Like, that question always, like, I don't know if that's luck. I don't know if that's nurturing. I don't know, like, because I have gratitude for that. My trials have been my fuel for my life. And I look at some people and it's like, why do they fall and not get up?
Yep. And you know what it is? It's your reaction to trauma. It's your reaction to a traumatic experience. Fight, flight, or freeze. Right? Those are the 3. Like when we talk about like the just basic human animalistic thing, it's like we are built to fight, flight, or freeze. And we're born with different ways of doing it. So some people get knocked down and they just freeze. And they stay in that frozen position for a long, long time. You know what I mean? Some will fight back and then they get really aggressive, you know? Some will just fly and just disappear for, you know? So that's truly what it is. And that's what I've like uncovered over this last year is just like, whoa, like all of these moments have been in response to these traumatic experiences. Like I don't want to fail. So if I don't want to fail, then I have to get a fake manager and do this thing. And then the thing that's always been with us, and like I say us, like me, Maritza, Unseen, has been we're able to respond to a traumatic experience in a way that's either fight or flight, because we don't necessarily freeze, but then we get accolades for the things that we do, right? So perfect example. We don't have, that doesn't exist in Sacramento, artist management, especially in 2007, 2006. You know, so then I don't want to fail. So I create the Sean Williams. And then from that, we start getting booked bigger, making more money, right? So then it's like, oh shit, this is working. And then Maritza comes into the picture. And this is like when we first were like, okay, I think we have something here. She comes into the picture because then she could be the main face now. So now we didn't have to fake it anymore. That's kind of like that.
She's actually this person.
She's actually this person. So now it's like you talk to Maritza, but you only talk to Sean on emails because we were tag teaming. It's like, oh, they need you to call.
Good cop, bad cop.
Yeah, exactly.
Sean
that's
can come
exactly
in.
what it is. That's exactly what it was.
It's a genius concept in general to have this like alter ego that can kind of, you know, Maritza can come in and smooth things over. Yeah. And then you have Sean in the background that's like maybe more demanding and maybe more asking.
It was actually vice versa.
Oh,
she was like the one, like when she came through, she was like, you guys are getting paid what? I'm like, yeah, you know, just like, you know, $1,000 each, you know, it's good. She's like, you guys are way more talented. They don't come out for less than 10. What the fuck are you doing? Like, it's just wait. They're not going to call back. We're good? Okay. It was just like, whoa, like, okay, you are undervaluing yourself. And so it takes people like outside of you 100%. To like really understand like you're undervaluing yourself. But it's a scary little process. But she was always the bad cop. It was like, hey guys, we'll do anything. What's going on? As long as you pay us something, we're good. Love, Sean. You know? And then she was like, nah, son, they're not coming out for less than this.
Interesting.
And it was like, yo, like, okay, got it. So it's funny, like she was the bad cop. And I was
so did it start taking off after Maritza came in? Did it Righteous Movement and the event or management? Yeah,
so we started taking off more and more, and then a lot of the artists that we were dealing with were like, bro, what what changed? Like, you guys are on the cover of SNR now. Like, you guys are doing all these bigger tours, Vans Warped Tour. Like, what is it? And it's just like, it's just me and her. Like, what do you mean? And they're like, nah, son, like, you guys didn't crack the code or something. Can you do it for me? And I was just like, nah, man, like, we're just over here trying to survive. Like, at that time, I was still going to school, was in this band that was like touring, had Noah, you know, who was like 2. Still working. So it was like, and then outside of that, I was just trying to make it, you know? And so it's like, dude, I don't have time for that. And like, a guy would just call every single weekend and be like, yo, man, I want you to manage me and my sister. And I knew he was going to call one day. And I was just like, Maurice, if we can get him to pay us at least something, I'm not making that much at the state. Like, that would open up a lot. It's like, I think we should start a company. Like, I think we should just like take on a couple. If I took on like 2 different clients, like, I don't have to go to work and fake it. I could like do it, you know? And she's like, okay, like, if you see it,
that's interesting, because that's like entrepreneurship 101, that process of you took a problem.
Yeah.
You just solved it for your own circumstances. Mm-hmm. You solved a problem. Yep. It wasn't,
we're going to be at a crazy event management company that does all the West Coast of the United States, all over the country. It's like, no, you had an issue at hand. Mm-hmm. You solved that. Proof was in the pudding. It started to work.
Yep.
People started, and then it's just like you took the next step.
Yep. It was just take on one and then take on another.
I feel like so many times it's like, from a business standpoint, it's like we want to have the biggest thing as opposed to what is the thing that I can do right now to make this better or improve this situation.
Yep. And just like in that, you just continue to grow, you know? And like, I still think about it, like 14 years of being an entrepreneur, like that is a long time. Mm-hmm. Like sometimes it's like scary to look at, like, damn, so I've not had like a real job, air quotes, where I had to like show up every single day. And I'm thinking back to like when I worked for the state or worked for Target or worked for any of these like Sunglass Hut, Watch Station. Like I used to work in those spaces where it was like I had to ask for permission to even take a day off, or I had to be somewhere at a specific time and clock in, clock out. And I was like, damn, I haven't lived that lifestyle in 14 years. It's kind of crazy.
It's wild.
It's kind of crazy because then I'm like, whoa, I'm only 40. You know what I mean?
So it's over a third of your life. You're in the entrepreneurship realm.
And so it's like, yo, I can't even go back at this point. Like I wouldn't even know what that looks like.
What was the moment that you were like, I'm an entrepreneur? Like that I'm like doing the thing. Was there some moment that you actually, because I'm sure at the time you were just managing the group and you're just doing what you're doing. You're surviving.
Yep.
Is there a moment you're like, ooh, this is something, we got some steam here. I'm kind of doing my own thing.
Not at all. Every day I wake up and I'm like,
still
14 years. Oh, that's a long way down. Keep flying. No, I'm just kidding. But kind of it's like that. It's like, damn, like you never really know. And, you know, I'm like thinking like we have this company that we've built over the 14 years. We've made millions of dollars throughout the years. Like, and that was one of the things in therapy, like I had to learn about myself is like, I've been afraid to land back where I came from. Right? Because I came from a lot of traumatic experiences growing up in the hood.
Got it.
And
so
like
you're running from that.
I was running from that for a long time. Right? It's just like, no, I can't stop. Yeah, I can't. Gotta go. Gotta put the kids through private school so they're not ended up back there. Okay, cool. Gotta run. The money in the bank. Oh, that's not enough money in the bank. Gotta go. You know, and so it's been that. But on that flip side, like I was saying, accolades, rewards for that behavior, right? And so it's like, damn, when you think about it in that terms, it's like I'm been running from these traumatic experiences and not solving them, right? And then grow. People love growth. They see an entrepreneur growing. It's like, cool. Like, so it's been interesting to kind of like look at it from a very personal perspective and heal those traumas. and then move forward in that way. But for a long time, as I start to look through it, it's always been just like, gotta do the next thing, gotta go, because I don't want to fail. I don't want to end up back here, like, you know. And so it's been interesting. Like, that's been in this last,
it's actually running the show. Your childhood, or the things that you are most afraid of are actually dictating everything you're doing.
Yep. And putting systems in place to like not get to that like fear. So it's like putting these big systems in place, company or people, employees, is like, you're going to help me not actualize my fear.
Got it.
Which is totally different from like, we're going to actually work at actualizing my goals.
When did this make sense? Yeah, totally. When did this, has this kind of been a recent realization for you? This last year, therapy has just been like that thing for me that's been like, whoa, so this isn't how everybody does it. This isn't everybody's response to these things. This isn't like, it's funny. It's so eye-opening is having a conversation with your family that you grew up with about their childhood and the way that they grew up. Like, that was one of the funniest things. Like, was that an exercise you did and actually sat down and said, tell me about?
Yeah, because in my childhood growing up, I grew up in the hood. In the neighborhood, there was a lot of Bloods, right? My uncle was like one of the biggest Bloods, so he was like very connected, which helped in a lot of senses because he was like, that's my nephew, don't fuck with them. So I didn't go fully into like gang like someone else who would have come up with me, right? I kind of had that pass, but I ran adjacent to everybody in the hood. And so I saw a lot, and this is 90s. This is in the 90s when gangs are like the thing, the peak. You know what I mean? Yep. So I'm in a Blood neighborhood and I'm seeing all of like drugs. I'm seeing like cats get shot. Like, literally, I saw a guy get shot in the neck, like from point blank, right? And it's like, yo, like doing that, or like I'd be places and like I joke and I say like trouble would just follow me, sitting at like a light rail station and being cool with everybody, seeing one of the homies that's not necessarily on the right side of the tracks, be like, yo, what's up, B? Like, okay, and I'll be right back. Walks over to another guy that's like standing next to us, like waiting for the light rail station, punches him in the face and is like, pocket check, knocks him down, takes the stuff out of his pockets and then runs off. And I was just like, damn, like what just happened?
Did that ever feel normal, or did it
was normal.
It was normal. You know, it wasn't like a question of like, this is not what I want, or was it just like, this is what is?
It's that this is what is. I don't want to go down that path.
Got it.
Right? But and this is what I learned, is like, this is just how it is, you know, like this is what we grew up in. Okay, cool. You know, like seeing cops, like I'll never forget driving down the street and like cops are like task force out, like kicking in doors of like drug houses, like seeing all this stuff and just being like, okay, cool. Like, it doesn't faze me, until I had a conversation this year with like my mom and my sister and being like, yo, what was your experience like growing up in the neighborhood? And my sister's like, oh, it was the best time of my life. Like, that's where I met like diverse people. You know, that was the most diversity I had. I loved my school. Didn't even really realize until I was older that it was like one of the like not good schools, but that's where I had like the most diverse friends. Like, it's like, it was great. I stayed inside. I got on the internet and like, it's one of the best times of my life. And I was like, whoa, like, wait, what?
Your sister older or younger?
She's my younger. She's like younger by like 4 years.
Got it.
Right.
So it wasn't that different.
It was completely different.
So her experience was different. Was she living in a different neighborhood?
No, we lived in the same house.
So she just had a totally different
outlook.
Got it.
Totally different outlook. And then, you know, we broke it down and my mom was like, she was like, yo, I did not know all of that happened to you this year. I did not know all of that happened to you. If I would have known that happened to you, we would have moved to a different neighborhood. Like, I was under the impression that there were no gangs in our neighborhood. Like, right? And it's just like, whoa, like, your experience was totally different from my experience. Then I had my stepbrother, same thing. He grew up kind of more like I did. And he's like, yeah, like there was this, there was that. You guys didn't see this, you didn't see that. And they were like, no, not
You think
at
that's
all.
like a male female thing?
Exactly. That's
Like
what we
that's
got
what the
into
culture of that,
Mm-hmm.
where, I mean, for all of us, into our experiences of where we're from, but that was very male dominated into what you were witnessing.
Yep. Yep. And that's what we kind of broke it down to. It was like, yeah, well, that makes sense. As a black male, like you're out in the streets a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
You're told to be out there, you know, you have to, and it goes, you could take race off of it. It's just like with males, you're out in the streets and stuff more, out in the neighborhood, out playing.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like the women and the females, especially in the black females, my sister was like, I always knew like I didn't want to be one of those girls who were like a baby's mom or like I forget the other thing she said, but it was kind of like these both, she's running from those negatives of being a black woman. So she was like, so I dug my head in the books so I could be a smart black woman that wasn't a baby's mom. And so that was her, like, truly when you talk about it, it's like that was her like change to trauma, or her response to trauma.
Totally.
Was like, I'm gonna do good, put my head down in the books and do good. And she was always the book smart girl that never went outside, right? And so it's just like, damn, like having conversations with folks that you grew up with about their experience, you start to see like the experience was not the same at all.
It's interesting for you. It's like, and your sister, you guys naturally wanted to do what was different, which is like, I don't know if that's a testament to your mom or like a core personality of you. And it's kind of you in general.
Yeah.
Like you like to walk a different beat than what's going on.
Non-traditional,
Yeah. What's going on around you. But it seems like that was also the pathway.
Yeah.
Forward or out.
Yeah, exactly. Forward, out, all that. And yeah, that is like my mom, you know, like we always say, like, we grew up in the hood, but in our house, it was very counter to like what was going on in other people's houses. You know, like my mom was always like, I want to keep my kids close. So, Roshaun, you're friends with Ryan. Ryan can come over to our house whenever. Not so much you go over to Ryan's house.
Got it.
We're going to have fun bingo nights. You know, we're going to have different things because she saw other kids and she's like, they don't get these things. So let's have a fun bingo night once a month where we invite all the neighborhood kids and play bingo for big ass candy. Like we always did those kind of things. So like they were very family inside the house. Right. But then we left out the house and everybody, like there's 5 of us at a time. Right. Everybody had a different experience, which is so crazy to me because we didn't have the tools to talk about those things at a younger space, right? It's just until this year that we've been having those conversations of like, oh, wow, you did grow up different. And, you know, like, whoa, we didn't really talk about our experiences growing up because we were just, all of us were in what we were in and just accepted it.
Trauma is interesting where we like attach to certain moments. It's like something I think about is like we all of us are going to have trauma. And there are these random moments like my mom will look at me like, man, I didn't know that happened to you. And it's like this micro moment in time that it has fully entered my identity and that piece. And it's like, in trauma, I think it's a misconception that trauma has to be like I saw my best friend get shot, or I went to war and got you know, again, saw someone get shot, or like these things that are very traumatic. But then there's these micro ones that are just subtle moments in time that maybe someone snapped at you. And then that becomes the piece. And I think it's the dialogue's changing into trauma because we all have it to some degree. To
some degree, 100%. And we don't even know it at some of these times. You know,
100%.
like I would have never said that like me building what we built with Unseen, like all of those things were like these trauma responses. Like I just wouldn't. It was just like, not saying I just don't want to fail, but the fear of failure was like not debilitating in a sense of like I couldn't move, but it was such an engine that it made me way more powerful to like push forward, like on full blown, you know. But it's like that takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of, like all of these different things. And it's like, damn. Oh.
Yeah, because there's nothing inherently. It's actually, I would say, it's been a strength to utilize it that way. And at some point, your nervous system and who you are and is like, that's only going to take you so far.
Yep.
And then it's going to start being, I got to bulldoze through everything to get into more of just calming yourself down.
And I can't stop, right? Like that's been like my whole thing. Like, it's like, I can't stop. Like I remember saying that to my therapist. Like I was like, yo, I can't stop. Like, no. And she's like, why not? And I'm like, no. And well, we're going to go here. Okay. This is exclusive right here. One of those things. This is when, for me, everything unraveled for me, right? Like all of these realizations. When I had Noah, I stopped smoking weed, right? I'm 19, about to be 20. And it was one of those things where I looked at weed as like being this bad thing. Black male, you get caught with weed on you when you're 19. This is 2001. You're going to jail for a dime sack. You know what I mean? So I always lumped it into there. So there was that bad. Then they used it as a tool for you not to get jobs. So if you came up with cloudy piss, you're not getting that good job. So I blocked it out for there. Then I just saw what it had done to my dad. I saw what it had done to like different folks in the community, how it became like these gateway drugs to other things. So I put it in a box and put bad on it. I always said like at one point when I made it, like I'll probably smoke weed again, just not now. September of this year, my homegirl Glenda gives me a joint. And she's like, yo, I know you've been doing a lot of work. She's like, anytime, like, she's just like, I'm just going to give it to you. I know you don't really smoke, but.
Glenda coming in with the
shout out to
medicine.
Glenda. Yes. So medicine. She was like, here you go. And I was like, okay, cool. So I put it in a drawer for hella long. And then it's like, all right, we went out one night. Me and Maritza didn't have the kids and had been drinking. And like, it was like, oh, okay. Like, yo, you want to smoke that? You want to smoke that joint?
This is first time
this since is October of this year.
First time since you were 19.
First time
19.
In 20 years, right? Like, yeah. So it's like, she's like, you're not gonna do it, and I'm like, nah, I will. So
you're not gonna do it.
She's like, you're not gonna do it. I'm like, because I had been joking about it since my birthday, and this is like mid-October, and I was just like, yo, you want to do that? Nah, we'll do it later. Because I wasn't really gonna do it. So, night, kids free, spark it up. Now, Roshaun, okay? And I always break this down. I have 3 different, like, pieces of me, okay? Roshaun is one piece, and that's the piece that a lot of people see. It's the successful guy that is just very, like, driven, entrepreneur, kills in the game, like all of these different things, right? Very cookie cutter, very do right by society type of guy, right? Then I have the nigga, right? Which is, I labeled this box and called it nigga. And that was all of the bad stuff that Roshaun was labeled by either society or the things that he did that were like the guys that I saw in the hood. Does that make sense?
Piece you're running from?
Mm-hmm. The piece that I'm running from. Put that in a box, and I put that box way in the back of the closet, right? So those were the 2. And so you have this good guy, and then you have this bad guy, right? And so I'm running from all the bad guy stuff, running into the good guy stuff, and it's getting accolades. And you've seen the accolades, like... It's like TED Talks, like all these different things that are just like, damn, bro, when you run that way, you get rewarded.
Yeah.
Keep going. So at that moment, like bringing that out, it was just like, okay, cool. Like, whatever. Let's go into Roshaun. Now, Roshaun, floats, meditates, breath work, ice baths, asha. Like, so he gets it and he's like, okay, let's see how we do this. seven breaths deep, hold it for 14. All my breath work stuff. You know what I mean? Just going in. Because Roshaun goes in when he goes in, right? So hold. Smoke the whole motherfucking joint, bro. Right? In that, like, deep. Just deep. Just 20 years of not smoking, I go off the deep end of fucking course. And then I'm already drinking, right? So this is my reintroduction into the world of marijuana.
How'd it go?
Bro, so this is what we're going to get into, okay? So in that, I unraveled so much. It was the most trippiest experience because I was paranoid. It got to a point where, like, when I first like started feeling it, I was just like, oh shit, like, I'm high. And Maurice was like, are you okay? And I was like, fuck. And she's like, what? I was like, fuck, like, damn. She's like, what? I was like, I just broke my streak. Like, fuck, like, this is so bad. This is so bad. And she's
the guilt and the shame.
Yeah. And she's like, what are you talking about? And I was like, fuck, don't look at me that way. And she's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, you're looking at me like my dad. I see it in you. Like, you're looking at me like my dad. My dad went that bad way on weed, then took it to other things, you know? So then there's the fear of, like, me showing up like my dad. She's like, yo, like, I don't look at you that way. But in my head,
you're interpreting this whole, you got the whole narrative around.
The whole narrative playing, just like, fuck, this is bad. Like, now everybody's going to look at me like, dad, is this going to turn into other things? Like, oh shit. Now, like, and then starts kind of same thing, like blackmail, smoking, like all those past trauma things come up. And just like, fuck, then I didn't feel safe inside the house. It's like, damn, so I'm walking around the house, pacing, you know, and then she's like, yo, you just need to go to sleep. Like, calm down, like, go to sleep. And then I was like, why do you keep telling me to go to sleep? And then I was like, fuck, this is my last day. Like, fuck, I'm gonna die. Like, shit. Damn, this is how I go out. Like, I've been hustling so hard. Like, this is how I go out. And it would be the person that's closest to you that lays you down to rest, right? Because in my head, I've always operated like I'll rest when I'm dead. So when she said, like, you just need to rest, I took it as like, damn, she wants me to lay down and die, right? And so I'm just like, these are all the things that are going through my head and, like, going through my experience, like, unraveling. I'm like, nah, I'm not going to rest. I'm just going to work it off. I'm going to work it off. Where's my computer? Shit I do.
Go to your pattern.
It's the shit I do.
Yeah.
So I try and get my computer. She's like, no, like, you're not. She's like, you're not about to send this email. Like, and I'm like, nah, I'll just work. Takes my electronics, and she's just like, yo, you need to chill. And I'm like, I can't chill. Like, if I chill, if I rest, I will die. Like, I'm not gonna die today. No. And she's just like, yo, like, calm down. Whole experience was totally crazy, right? And I'm just like, finally calm down. And then I thought of you that night. Actually, I thought of you. I've told hella people this story, and I thought of you because there was a moment when it locked in that I was safe, but I didn't feel safe. You know what I mean? I didn't still feel safe in my own home. I didn't trust this person that I love and I'm married to. I'm thinking that I'm going to be like my dad because weed is bad. It's all of that shit that was in that box that I had, like, opened up and thrown out. And then all the shit that was in this box and had thrown out. And I was just dealing with all of it and just, like, got to a point where I could, like, come down a little bit. And then I was like, oh. And at that moment when I finally, like, realized, I fucking threw up. Right?
You purged it.
I purged it. And I thought of you because the first time, and it's funny because in my head, like, I was like, oh yeah, I'll do ayahuasca at some point, you know, in my life. Like, okay, cool. But I remember, like, our conversation around ayahuasca, and I never forget, like, when you were like, I purged it, and I could look and see, like, that was cancer leaving my body, you know, like, or what. I remember you saying something along those lines, and I was just like, I thought about you as I was throwing up. I was like, just going. And I was like, this was that moment for me to remember, like, and I don't throw up at all, B. Like, it's been so long since I like actually threw up some stuff. Like, it's one of those moments like I remember, you know, but it was like the purging of all of that shit. And so it's like this like human ayahuasca experience,
100%.
you know, like
Dude, marijuana is like a thing when used, you know, I don't know if you had an intention going in, but you used it very deliberately. It was a moment where it was like you had been kind of setting it there, been playing in your mind, and you did it to the full, like, I want to engage in it. Marijuana in our current culture, like, is thought of as just this kind of casual, it's almost like an alcohol.
Yeah.
You just use it, but it's like, it is a very potent, I've had some of the most like deep psychedelic transformative times on cannabis. And it sounds like it basically brought up things that were just sitting there unconsciously, but that were running your conscious mind. Mm-hmm. And you got to engage with every single one of them.
Yep, and live it all out. And so what I feel like is like, it's like a closed fist that was just here, like in my chest, just rattling, like just living out, just And at that moment, it was just like that single joint was like bloop, 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 opened up all my hands and just like unraveled all of that stuff and made me have to deal with it. And not just deal with it, but see it. Mm-hmm. See it. So at a subconscious level, this is how I've been operating. I've been operating out of fear, right? And so it's just like, oh, damn, like, look at all this, bro. Like, this is how you've been operating. Mm-hmm. And so, like, now I say, it's like, what I'm learning is that box that I had put, like, the word nigga on, it's not that. It's actually Roshaun the man, Roshaun the boy. And then you bring it into, like, the spiritual homie, which is learning from both of those things and being able to stand here and use both of those. So it's like this 3, right, that I can move from now, which, you know, leads to like who I am now, like the spiritual homie. Like, but I had to go through all of these different experiences to like understand, like, nah, it's not bad. My childhood moments, this trauma that I went through, it's not bad. Stop running from it. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's just like, stop running from it, deal with it, see what it is, see that it's just fear. And you've been operating just off of fear, and now let's move forward in a different way.
Seems like you like cut that part of yourself off. Like you said, you put it in a closet.
Put it
and now it's like it's there. It's actually, it's not good, bad. It's just, it is. Yeah. This is a part of me, and like
it was a little boy. It was a little boy that had been hurt all through his life, running all through his life, like, and looking at that and being like, nah, like this little boy deserves to be loved, you know, and like healed. And there's a lot there, you know, like going back all the way to like my childhood. Just these are the things that I've been operating off of, and then just shoving to the back, going. And that's kind of bringing it back forward is like sitting in therapy, and she's like, what are you running from? And it's like, I don't want to end up back there, you know? And it's like, but you're not going to end up back there. Mm-hmm. Like, look at everything that you've done. Look at everything that you've been able to create. And you've created this out of a fear. Mm-hmm. Just imagine when you flip that coin and look on the other side and then create out of whatever you want, joy, whatever, like totally different ball game now, you know?
So. It's such a testament to you of like, you take experiences as such. Why is this happening for me? And I don't know if you were thinking that night, but you didn't try and you didn't just wake up the next morning like, don't want to deal with that.
Yeah.
It was like, whoa, this, like you purged, and you saw it as a purge, and you were able to actually engage with, I know marijuana paranoia is like, it's very hard to, but you like, this sounds like a very transformative moment for you.
Transformative. Yeah. And then having conversations after that and being able to share my experience, right? Like I shared it with my homegirl, Estella, who like runs Soul Collective. And I was just like, yo, man, I had this experience. And she was like, you know, especially as people of color, like there's this stigma around cannabis because of how we grew up, especially like back in the 90s, you know, it's like, yeah, I could see why you did that. But if you remove that lens and go all the way back, like our ancestors have been using plant medicine
100%.
for eons, and they've used it for the same reasons that you used it for. It's just when you got planted here in earth, like it was just this time frame of it being bad, and me wanting to be good. I pushed that back. But, you know, having that conversation and really realizing like, nah, like this is like an ancestral thing that goes back decades that we've used in this way of like being able to deal with your traumas, being able to like face those fears.
Got chills.
Look at fears in different ways. But if you don't have that historical knowledge, or you don't have anyone that's like bringing that to the forefront, then you don't really get it, you know, which is like why it is so important to like look at all of those different pieces, you know? And so we had that conversation and it was very grounding. It was like, yeah, like my relationship with marijuana up until the time I was 40 it had this fun time with it, played with it until, you know, like my teen years, 19, shut it off and put it in the bad box. And then it was interesting because when I'm thinking about it on the other side, like the other side of the coin, it's like your 19-year-old self would have been like, you made it. You made it. You were smoking weed in a house that you own in one of the nicest neighborhoods in Sacramento. Beautiful kids. We're away for the weekend. You know, there's money in the bank. You have a very successful company. Like, you made it. Be happy with that. And you always said you would get to a point where you would bring it back. And you got to even that point, you know? And it's just like, damn, when you look at it from that way, yeah, that's a whole different perspective in looking at it from, right? It's just like, no, that was actually a beautiful moment to be able to like be in that space.
It's interesting, like how many things we probably ridicule, or you had this like negative connotation to, and it's like, how many things do I have right now that I've judged as like a wrong, or, you know, and you redevelop the relationship, whether you're smoking weed now or not. It's like you have this whole new engagement with it, and you see this flip side of like, wow, this gave me this. This like moved and reconnected me to a part of myself that I was denying.
Running from, being fearful of, you know? And so it's like, I think going back to like all the way back to the beginning, like understanding that those perspectives like exist is like my work and the thing that I always kind of do it. And like you're saying, that fear doesn't have to come from like marijuana. It can come from relationships. It can come from friendships. Like we all have these different things that we're like, we can either look at it from the perspective of it's this bad thing that happened to me and then tuck it away and not have a conversation about it, or we can look at it as this thing happened to me and let's like open it up and examine it and say like, and get the lessons in it, right? And I always use like these experiences as lessons. It's like a little box. It's like, oh shit, what's the world gonna hand to me now? Oh, a pandemic. See that written on there. Pandemic. Gosh. All right. Let me all right, let's open up this box and see what's in here, you know, or some people will be like, nah, I'm pushing that box back and I want to just return to normal, you know, or like there's all of these different places where it's like, no, I'm just going to, I'm, you know, like one of my friends, she used to say like she would get bills in the mail and then she would just put them to the side and not open them. Like they just disappeared and they didn't, you know, like, but that's how some people deal with certain things, you know? And I feel like this pandemic, like folks, some people did that. It was just like, you know, gonna get this box and I'm just gonna not open it. Not gonna deal with it. Some people are like, oh, I'm not gonna open it. I just want to return to normal. For me, it was just like, be present, open this box, see what's in here for you, and then use these tools to move forward, you know? And so it's been interesting, you know, and that's just on the personal side. Yeah. Right? On the business side, it's been a transitional phase for us, right? Like
what are you guys doing right now?
So right now, we're in the process of like restructuring the company, actually. So one of the things that most people knew about us we were events, right? But we never really started with events. Events just became an add-on to everything else we've been doing, which is community development, community connection, being cool with everybody, and then bringing everybody to the table. Like, that's our superpower, right? It could be the governor, the mayor, city council members, districts and organizations, small businesses, people from the community, people from the streets. Like, let's bring them all to the table. Like, that's always been that thing, right? And so events kind of led the way for a long time, right? So when there was no events, it was just like, oh shit. But then we had this whole client base and community group that was like needing help, trying to maneuver through it. And it was like, oh, well, we can help you with that. We can help you with marketing your campaign and doing this. Okay, cool. So we got a big contract to do like a COVID collaboration, like the Sacramento County, and then our clients here, our Health Foundation, put together a collaboration of like different folks that were pushing for like information and getting it out to small businesses and blah, blah, blah. So they came to us and they were like, we need you to design it and like help us. So then that was a contract that we got, and it was like, okay, cool. And then the markets and things were still going, you know, and because farmers markets are essential. So then it's like, okay, so we're going to keep running this market. And then even when everything happened with Midtown and they kicked us out and, you know, like that whole traumatic thing that happened there, then another city that had already partnered with, Elk Grove, was like, bring it over here. We need it over here. We see what happened over there. Come over here, you know? And so it was like, okay, cool. But still being able to help folks be sustainable, because the small businesses at that time, that was the only thing that they had going, right? Like everything else had stopped. And so it's like, yo, be at this market. It's an open air market. We're still able to do it. So then we have markets going, then we have client work going. And then it's like, this is actually what we've been doing. Just people only looked at us through this lens of event, but nothing changed. We like helped our clients that we had been helping, and helped the folks that are in the small business community stay afloat too. And then like it became prevalent, like, wait, but what didn't make sense for us was like the community events that we did, right? Because we've always kept those free to the public, want everybody to be at the table. And so when we started doing the math on like Gather and things like that, I was like, yo, this does not make money. Like, and now I see where the hole is. Like, we have this successful like consulting side where we bring folks like that are clients in and get paid very well to do what we do. And then we take that money and we reinvest it into the community and do like Gather. so it's like interesting. Like, we're taking our profits and putting them right back into the community. This is strange, but that's what we do, you know? And so then started researching a community development corporation. And that's exactly what a community development corporation does. It is a nonprofit entity that is a 501c3 that can purchase real estate to develop areas. And then they have this community component where they develop community as well. And so I was like, this solves a problem for us, because you've seen it. Like, we develop these communities, and as soon as we develop them,
you're not in charge. Someone comes in and
is like, thank you, I'll take that. And so I was like, wait, but if we own this real estate, you can't kick us out anymore. We got community development on lock. We can bring, like I just listed, anybody to the table to help us build community, and like not even build, just sustain community that's already there. Got it.
So do you basically go, would that be like an investor group to buy the real estate with you guys with the intention of, we have a contract to run this event out of here, we have a lease, we have income coming in?
Yep.
And there's longevity. You can build this and know not in 3 years your contract's up.
Exactly.
And the event's gone.
Yep. And so we know from living and doing what we've done in Oak Park, it takes about 8 years, right? Like we're in our 8th year over there in Oak Park.
Wow.
Right. And then, so it's like seeing that, it's like, oh, and then the Community Development Corporation can also bring in different private investors, can bring in funding from the federal government, from the state, from the city, from all the PBIDs. We can all put money into this pot to then either go buy some assets or do the free community programming and things like that. So all of this pandemic has allowed us to move into that structure. And it's like, oh, this is a game changer, because what I know is like our creativity is capital, right? But no one can quantify creativity. That's that one thing. It's like we can have, as entrepreneurs, we have these creative solutions to problems, right? Some people are more technical with their solutions to problems, but there's a whole world that exists that's like, let's get creative about how we look at this problem of neighborhood revitalization. And so with that, what people didn't see is like, I don't know why, especially at like the higher levels, they just don't get it. It's like, you guys are creative. I don't know. You know, like
Well, it's almost like you were out creating a brand of each event, but you didn't own the brand.
Didn't own the land.
Didn't own the land.
Yeah.
And like the name of the event, or maybe the concept of the event, could be taken from you at a certain time, where the, like you're saying, the creativity was capital. Like this was something we gave and we sweat equity into this, but truly wasn't equity.
It wasn't equity. And so that was what it came down to, is just like, this is not equitable. It's not equitable. So how are we going to fix that? And it's like, Community Development Corporation. Now we can go in and create capital stacks, get private investors, and, you know, folks that now trust us know, like, if I'm like, Ryan, this is where we're moving to, and this is what we're going to do over here. Now we have a 9-year track record in one area, right? To show like, we know what we're doing, and we know how to keep it inclusive. We know how to keep people there. We know how to keep all the folks at the table. We're going to run it in a different neighborhood and do the same thing. And then looking at the value and the appreciation of both the land, right? Like when you go back 9 years ago in Oak Park, there were things that were...
Yeah, I mean, if you own property there at that time.
At that time.
Man.
Right? To now. And so it's like, we know this works. But what wasn't at the table at the beginning was the inclusivity of the community being a part of the ownership side. Right? So now, like, that's what we've been working on this last year, is like creating these capital stacks where folks can come in and like purchase land, and then the Community Development Corporation will come in and purchase land. Now we have placekeeping down, and then we can start doing placemaking, which is what gets the area to crack. And so then it's like looking into the bag of like everything. I'm like, oh, we have hella developer clients that we've worked with to do their grand openings or their ribbon cuttings or their things. And so then I'm sitting down having conversations with them, and I'm like, yo, if we move in this area, will you guys move too? And they're like, yeah, we got affordable housing projects that we can bring. So then it's like, okay, so now we have a partner that can bring affordable housing to communities.
Wow.
Okay. Roll with this. All right.
That's
cool.
true community building.
Right.
That's like, you know, that's development.
Right.
At that level.
On a full scale. And so that's kind of like, that's where we've been. And so beginning of this year, just struck like that structure, getting that right, going through the process of getting the 501c3, or like starting to identify places in Sacramento. And this goes further, right? Like it could come out to Auburn, it could come out to, you know, different places. It's just about the partnerships that we create and the framework in which we use. And then we bring in the community folks that are already here doing it. And then it creates jobs for folks, right? Like people who are living in the communities, like hiring from within. So if we open up a display or we do a gather or any of the creative stuff that we do, we just hire from the community there, then it becomes sustainable, right? And so it's like all of these different pieces are coming together now, and it's like, oh, that's what the pandemic was for.
It's cool to see, man. I mean, I had no clue. We hadn't talked,
Yeah.
but I knew was excited for this conversation because I knew there was something. I knew you would find the thing out of this. That's what you do. And this all makes sense. And it's cool to hear from Sean Williams to true development, real estate development, and like city development is where it's at. So,
and then business too, you know what I mean? Because that's part of like, we have this pipeline. We built this pipeline of micro businesses that have a dream of wanting their own brick and mortar, right? And so it's like to be able to see and identify talented people that want to go to market and can go to market, right? Like when they go to the events, right? There's thousands of people that come through, and then help them develop because they're making money from those events. Then it's like, yo, now let's get you a brick and mortar. And we're going to work with you. We're not going to be like these developers that are just like, and I've seen the backside of development now, where it's like they make a lot of fucking money. You know what I mean? It's like there can be ways that it's equitable on that side, whether it's a profit share first off, like as you're getting, you know, or like just different lease terms. It's like being able to be flexible will have the control of that.
And the cool part is like part of that, I think the issue that development can be that way is there's no relationship.
Yeah.
So there's a trust factor. Are you going to be a good business?
Yep.
But if you're building community with them, you're doing fairs, you're doing like you run this with them for a year. You see how they work.
See it.
Cool. That's okay. Let's take the next step.
Yep.
So there's like actual like partnership that's going on there.
Yep. And then you can see just like that whole process start to lay out, and it's like, oh, and then that dope business is next to another dope business, is next to another like little restaurant or cafe or blah blah blah, in one area. Now we're talking about these places being dope to be in, you know, and it's just like, oh, we can create that. Got it. Yeah.
It's incredible, man.
Right?
That's awesome. I wanted to get your input of where do you see events, like with where life's at, your foot's on the ground there, like what are events coming back? Like what's the pulse at? Like what do you feel?
The pulse, it's the Super Bowl. Yeah. So events are coming back full force.
Cool.
Did you see the Super Bowl?
Yeah, it ripped.
Yeah. It's like, I'm like, okay, we're getting to that point. Like, you know, I think.
Are there contracts coming out? Is there money because I know a lot of events come from, it's not just private money, it comes from state programs, city programs. Are they, you know, obviously regulations that have been in place and mandates that have taken place that have really stifled that? Are they opening up now?
Yeah, I think, you know, it's interesting. There's a lot of different grants and stuff like that are coming from the city that help with that industry, right? Like the state just put out California venues, right, where they were giving out like $250,000 for folks that lost more than 70% of their income, right, so that they can sustain and then get back to it.
Got it.
So I think, you know, the pandemic also allowed for people to see that piece. Like it's gonna take a lot of folks to bring it back up to where it was, you know. So even like us, like with Gather, you know, it's one that definitely want to bring back, but we're not in full scale yet, and the pandemic allowed for like, let's not even pretend we're in full scale, you know, like let's take it slow. So if we do one Gather this year or two Gathers this year, we're good. It's more than we did the last 2 years, you know. And so it's like being able to slowly start it up on a smaller like community level. I think you'll see that more and more. I think at the large scale, these guys are back to business. Super Bowl's open, you know, like all the big events are going to be open. They'll have a problem trying to fill and get back to max capacity in some situations. But I think sports will be good. I mean, everybody loves sports, or like the mass majority loves sports. But then like these festivals, if you're catering to a younger demographic, then I think the events will go back faster. If you're catering towards an older demographic, like a Bottle Rock or something like that, then there's going to be some time before that gets back to like full capacity.
Got it.
You know what I mean?
Makes sense.
Yeah, because, you know, the older you are, the more cautious you are of like different things. And so those are the things that I'm seeing and that I'm paying attention to out in the world of how things are moving. So, But yeah, we're back. Like, like I went to Texas for my birthday, and I was just like, did the pandemic happen here, guys?
Totally. It's been like I've gotten out of California a number of times. I'm like, it's ripping here. I was out in Texas a number of times this last year.
I'm like, did the pandemic happen? They're like, yeah, it was that thing that happened for a day. What?
Totally.
So yeah, that gives me hope. You know what I mean? And that's like, that to me is like being able to get really back to like the core of like connecting with the community, bringing folks out so they can connect, like, which is what
it's gonna be important.
Love. Yeah, it's
breaking down. I mean, we've created this separation over the last 2 years. Yeah. There's a natural fear amongst us that you see it like we've been programmed to kind of be nervous of each other.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be important for people like you to come back in and create that space that we realize it's safe. And this is essential for us to be with each other.
Yeah. Like that's the essential part now is like getting reconnected with community. And I feel like, you know, and I always told my team from the beginning, it's like, we're on pause right now on that, but I feel like that's going to come back in full force at some point. And so seeing that side is just like, okay, got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Well, I got a few questions for you before we wrap up. Yeah. Just like asking everyone, what's something that Ro believes that isn't commonly accepted?
Oh, that I believe that isn't commonly accepted. I think more and more like lately what I'm starting to think about or like understand, but I don't think it's commonly accepted, is astrology. Yeah. Understanding like planets, sun, moon, how it matches up in your houses. Like that shit is real. 100%. But then, you know, some people look at it and they're like, oh yeah, it's just, what is that? My horoscope? And it's like, nah, like when you start breaking it down and you see this planet being in this house of yours and then some shit happens and you're just like, this is the realest thing ever. Even more so than religion, even more so than anything that you've been taught. Like, but it's kind of one of those things where it's like, no, it's just that thing that. So yeah, I think that would be it.
Cool. Love it. What are 3 people you would love to have dinner with?
Oh, 3 people I'd love to have
past,
dinner
present, future, or I don't know if future is a thing. Let's go past and present.
Go past and present. Who would I love to have dinner with? If I could see myself at a dinner. I think Jay-Z. I love Jay-Z. I would just like to talk to him, just see where he's at. He's like he's been through a lot.
I'm so impressed with that, man.
And then he's also grown a lot, you know. So it's just like, what did you do? Who else? I think Oprah. I just always wanted to talk to her. Same thing. Like, how did you get to where you are? Girl from Chicago, you know, deep into the life. And then that last person, I think, let's see. Let's say Willy Wonka.
Willy Wonka.
The original Gene Wilder. Shout out.
The actual Gene Wilder?
Yeah.
Interesting. Why Gene Wilder?
I don't know, man. I just like Willy Wonka. That's the fun one. Like, I've just always loved that movie. That's one of my favorite movies, you know, like just him and that character is just, you dream it up, but there's also like this slight sense of like sarcasm that's just like hits you. But yeah.
I like that one.
Yeah.
What's one book that you would highly recommend?
Let me see. What books have I been reading lately? That's a good one. Let me see. I'm going to pull out my phone on this one because let's see what I've been reading lately. Da, da, da. Go to my audiobooks. Oh, easy. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So easy. Think and Grow Rich. The Alchemist. Like those are like the basics. You know what I mean? Like those are the ones that I would say like, yeah. Read those.
Timeless.
Yeah.
Timeless. Principles, practices. You don't even know when that book was written.
Yeah. Those would be, I did too. Think and Grow Rich and The Alchemist. I'd probably do it in the vice versa. Alchemist and then Think and Grow Rich.
I haven't read The Alchemist.
Oh, bro. Yeah. Read that one.
Cool.
Read that one. Yeah. It was like Paulo Coelho, I think.
Never pronounced his last name.
Yeah. That one's a good one. Yeah.
Great. Where we didn't even get into spiritual homie, but where
that'll be next time.
Yeah. Where can people find you and connect with you if they got questions or anything?
Yeah, I'd say reach out, Unseen Heroes, right? I just got my LinkedIn up and going.
Welcome. It's funny, I just fired mine up for like the first time in 2 years. Like 1,000 notifications. I'm like, I'm overwhelmed.
So check it out. I started one when LinkedIn started. And I never logged in after that.
When did LinkedIn start?
Like
2006?
6, 7?
Yeah.
Probably, or like 8 or something like that. Yeah. I started one then. So my profile history is that old. I just logged in for the first time since then, a couple months ago.
So what was your title 2000 when you created your profile?
Creative genius.
Not much has changed.
Not much has changed. But my cousin, she does like LinkedIn profiles for a living. I was like, hey, like word on the street is I got to get on this LinkedIn thing. Like I didn't know this was a thing still. Like people still use this. And one of my investor dudes that I was talking to, he's like, yo, bro, like that's where you're gonna find like the best investors. Like if you're really in the game for that, like you need to get on. And I was like, all right, cool. So I hit her up. And she sends me a message. She's like, yo, you really didn't take your LinkedIn serious. It says Roshaun Davis, creative genius, and then nothing else. And I was like, that's the magic of it, baby. If you want to know more, huh? She was like, you got to give us more. I was like, nah, if you want to know more, you'll holler at me.
Yeah, you slide into the, what is it? The message.
Slide into the messages.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think like LinkedIn. And then if you're looking for just inspiration, I have the Spiritual Homie. So that's just the Spiritual Homie on Instagram. I always post like
it's a great
messages.
Instagram page. Recommend it.
Yeah. That's been fun too. It's just like being able to just give it away for free. Conversations that I hear, I'll just post the homie said and then whatever. And that's been cool.
Awesome, man.
Yeah, man.
Cool. Well, this was awesome. Fun to hear what you're up to, man.
Yeah. Thank you for having me, man. Like this is beautiful. It's good to catch up and just like be here. I feel like we're out in the world every now and then we come together, and then like making that more and more intentional is like really key.
I think the last time we were together was doing the podcast. Yeah.
If you haven't checked out that one, check out that one. I interview Ryan, so it's vice versa.
Right on, man. Well, we'll cut it here.
Word.
Peace out, everyone.
Peace.